Hello, everybody. You are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, sign up for my newsletter so that you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, our guest today is a very talented person. He is a fellow medical intuitive. I love talking to other people who do what I do. He is the host of Energy Stew Radio, a weekly show for about 13 years. He is an intuitive counselor and a human design analyst. And you can find out more about Peter Roth and his work at heartriver.org. Welcome, Peter Roth.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Glad to talk with you. And we've talked before, and it's so wonderful to connect with you.
All right. Now, Peter, our audience really is dying to know, what is human design and where did it come from? Okay.
Human design is a way to understand the mechanics of our personality. And it was channeled in to an expatriate Canadian living in Ibiza, Spain in 1987. And this guy was walking along with no background in any of this. And a voice out of the blue started to talk to him in his head and said, "Pay attention, take notes. We're going to talk to you for 8 days." And they delivered this whole system because no human could have figured out how to put this all together. It's beyond the capability of our human minds to understand how the magic of this is so wonderful.
Very fascinating. Now, why would people be interested in human design?
Well, because we want to know, those of us who want to know about ourselves are interested. It's really about self-discovery, to understand why we are who we are. And not only why we are who we are, but why we are each who we are, and understand others as well. Because it can dive into the nature of our personality in detail. And it helps us see the mechanics of who we were born to be in very, very intricate ways that will always be there in our lives. And people will say, well, you know, conditioning is really what counts. And the thing that I always tell people is that life meets our human design. So as we were designed to be, those are the families we were born into. Those are the experiences we had in life, because it's all there to manifest who we are here to become. And so we have this mechanical nature that we start off with. It's really very strong. And people who are in large families know how different each person is. So you can't say, well, the genes are all the same, and therefore everyone's the same. We're all very different from each other because we're born at different moments. And so the system uses our time of birth and date, time, and place to actually pinpoint the way we're going to read about ourselves in human design.
Now, Peter Roth, I know that you're not just a human design practitioner, you actually teach human design.
Right, and that's why I'm able to be on the show talking about it, because I do help people understand how to use it, as well as just giving readings to people.
And how many years have you taught human design?
I think at this point, it's probably 16 years.
So you're a master at it.
I've done thousands of chart readings for people. I've seen it all. Oh my gosh. I mean, of course, everyone's different, so you never know what you're going to see next. But the scope of different personalities I've worked with. And let me also say that human design is not a whitewash. It doesn't just paints a pretty picture about you. It helps us understand their deeper natures, and we're all different. So I always remind people when I do readings, and often a lot of good people come to me and I say, don't take it for granted that this tells you how good you are, because it tells everybody how good they are. Actually, there are a lot of people in this world who we disapprove of, who have personalities that we don't like for very good reasons. They're not nice people. And guess what? Their human designs reveal that. And I've looked at human designs of many famous people. Some actually have come to me for readings, but so many people in the public arena that you can find their birth data online. And I've looked at their human design charts. And many of the public people who are bad guys, their human designs show that they're born to be bad guys. And you would think, how could that be? Why aren't we all born to be ideal and nice and wonderful? No, I think that we're born into a world of limitation. I think our souls come here to work through limitation to try to fix ourselves, or in some cases make things worse. But it's all about soul growth, one way or the other.
Now, why would someone consult you for human design? Does it help us with our physical health? Does it help us understand our psychology, or what?
Yes, probably all of it, because health and psychology are one and the same. And people come because they not only need to know themselves better, or want to, but they want to know. Often I work with families, with couples, with parents. They want to know each other, their children. They want to understand who they're here to be, so they can be better in relationships with them.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, I have a very good friend here in Atlanta, Maxine Taylor, who's an astrologer of 35 years experience. How does human design differ from astrology? Because they both use birth dates. So what's the difference?
Right. My wife is an astrologer, and she says human design is astrology on steroids.
Wow, what a compliment.
Yes. And that's because of such intricate detail that it gives you, that's easy to understand. It's so clear. Whereas astrology, you can have different astrologers, in a sense, giving you different readings, because they focus on different aspects, and there's a lot of philosophy and all that. Whereas human design is very succinct, gets to the point in great detail. So it's about seeing it in the light of, and we'll talk about where the details come from, because what's different from astrology is that instead of using planets and signs and houses, well, it uses the planets, but the planets create the signs and the houses. In astrology, this takes the planets and aligns them with the Chinese I Ching, the hexagrams of the Chinese I Ching. A lot of people don't know what that is. And it also, in the charts, it aligns the hexagrams in our chakras. So it's a very complex system that allows you to see ourselves in great depth as well as detail, because there's so much in human design. When I do a chart reading, minimum 2 hours, often they can take 3 hours, or even more, depending on how many questions people have. But it has so much detail. And those people who don't know about the Chinese I Ching, it's really a very ancient book of wisdom from China that's broken up into 64 parts. And the Chinese figured out all of life between the ultimate yin and yang poles. In between are all the intricacies of the way yin and yang interact to create life in its complexity. So they broke it down into 64 parts of complexity. So each part is clear and understands life in that particular concept. So there are 64 concepts, and they picture each of these 64 hexagrams. They're called hexagrams because they're shown to be 6 horizontal lines, one on top of each other, and each line is either a solid line or a broken line, which is yang or yin. And so if you have 6 lines, and any line can be a yang or yin line, you can actually have 64 various different hexagrams mathematically. And so this system, one of the magic aspects of this is that the man who received this information in 1987 was shown how to place the hexagrams of the I Ching around the sky. And so when we know what our birth date is, and there's also, he was shown that there's another date, 88.5 days before we're born, that the unconscious half of our personality clicks in. See, astrology knows nothing about that. And that actually is incredibly accurate about half of the way we think and work. And so this, so the planets then are set in the sky that we can see where they were at the time of moment of birth, and connect them to the hexagrams that surround the chart. And not only does it know which hexagrams you're born to, which particular ones, but it also knows which particular lines of each hexagram you're born to. It's that exact. And that's why we want to know the time of birth as well as day of birth. So we, it's very fine-tuned. And you would think, how could that have such, detailed reality that we can accept? And it's amazing how accurate this always is. When I get done with the chart reading, people will say, oh my God, everything about it was so true about me. How could it do that? And it does each time. And it's amazing because I've looked at your chart, and we'll talk about it because it certainly reads true for what I know about you.
Okay, well, all right, well, dive in. And for our audience, I haven't spoken to Peter about this. I have no idea what he's going to say. Hopefully he's going to say a few nice things. We'll find out.
Well, to start off with, there are particular categories of personality that are generalities that we can have. Like some of us are generators. You happen to be a manifesting generator. There are people who are manifestors. There are people who are projectors. And there are people who are reflectors. So what does that mean? That means the way that, in general, we see life and see ourselves in life. And you're a manifesting generator. I'm just a plain old generator. But us generators are 70% of the population, including manifesting generators. We're about half and half. And the way we go about life is that we stir the pot, thinking that the better we stir the pot using the generator motor that we have, the more life will work for us. So we're trying to make life work by stirring our pot real hard. The more we stir it, the more we throw into it, the more results we'll get. And that's how we are designed. And yet projectors, my wife is a projector, they don't have the same motor that we have. They don't have the generator motor. So they don't stir the pot. They don't think that way. They're actually more self-nurturers than us generators and manifesting generators. They're 21% of the population. And they don't stir the pot, they design the pot. Wow. So they are actually, their theme in life, they're trying to be recognized for who they are. They want to be seen for the wonderful nature of themselves, to be invited to participate in life in the best way possible. And so they're always working on themselves and, their aura, they're seen through their aura. And their aura contains all the details of their personality. And the more they go about functioning in the way that they're ideal, the more people want them to be ideal for them. So that's how they think. Whereas you and I, we just keep on stirring the pot, hoping that people see, how good we are at being busy and making things work the best way we know how. And then there are manifestors. Those are the energies of the old kings and queens. And they, like the old kings and queens, they wake up in the morning and they go, "This is what I want." And if the kingdom doesn't respond, heads will roll. So it's an old energy. So as 8.5% of the population are manifestors, and they are here to have impact. They just think of, what do I want to do to have impact? And they're sometimes it's not easy for them in this world that doesn't have kings and queens with that power anymore. So they have to learn more how to explain what they want. They're not here to ask what they want or ask to have what they want. They're here to tell you what they want. But they have to explain it in a way that people hear it and then say, "Okay, you can do it." It's their power. The manifestation is in the throat. So their human design actually has a very strong throat chakra. And it's kind of like the word of God, So as they speak, they expect, the world to work around them and to have impact. So that's a different type. And then reflectors, actually, they have no definition in their charts. It's their chakras are all if you looked at their charts, their chakras are all white. They're not defined. Whereas the rest of us have some chakras and often many chakras that are colored in. And if they're colored in, that means they're defined. And if they're not, well, you just don't know yourself in terms of those chakras. And so reflectors don't have any definition. So they're just living their lives as antennas. And they just respond to what's around them, very sensitive and live that way. And so those are different types. Now, you're a manifesting generator. So what it is that you're here to stir the pot. But us generators, we operate out of a guttural sound that tells us what's true or not. It's called our inner authority. And so it's a vibration that is or It's not words. Words are in the mind. Our minds are limited. As an intuitive, you know that you can't try to think answers. You can only listen for answers. And they come to you intuitively, which is different than your mind trying to figure it out. It arrives, and then you know. And so for a lot of people who aren't intuitive like us, they have their sound. And so people can ask them a question of what, for a choice that they're asking them to make, or choice they want to make. They just don't know which choice to make. And so if they're asked a question, their immediate guttural response, or is the authority that they can rely on, because that's that's a gut reaction that really knows what's correct or not. So as a manifesting generator, when you generate the right vibe for an answer, for a choice that you're looking for, and the choice is or I've learned to feel the vibe in my intuitive body. It's then, as a manifesting generator, you can then say what you want to do with it, and you become powerful and make things happen. So it's more powerful than I'm just a generator. So all I can do is keep on going, and say what comes next. And it doesn't mean that it's going to build monuments. It's just that I'm always moving along in the universe, following the universe's opportunities. Whereas you have more of a chance to created from that deeper manifester in you.
Now, Peter, how are the chakras used in human design?
Well, it offers what might be called a chakra template. In human design, it's also called a body graph that has chakras that house the different hexagrams, and they're housed permanently, so that the upper chakras, for instance, the crown chakra at the top of our head, has the 64th, 61st, 63rd hexagrams, which are much more about mind, and so they're always housed there. So all the chakras contain the different hexagrams, and the ones that are yours, that show up because of your planets activating them, then that activates them in the chakras. And there are a whole system of circuits between the chakras that connect to these alignments of these hexagrams. So if they're active in one chakra and it's on the same circuit of another chakra that's active, creates channels. And those channels are very lively in your design. So those of us who know how to interpret these gates and channels and circuits can read them to understand where your power is, where your strengths are, what works true for you.
Now, what are some of the basic attributes of human design?
Well, we talked about type, and that was the generator, manifesting generator. There are also many different attributes based on which are the more dominant lines of the hexagrams that keep showing up repetitively in your chart. So, for instance, first lines, usually, if you have the first line of a hexagram more repeatedly in your chart, you'll be more security conscious, more a sense of, I don't know, I better find out. Whereas if you're more of a second line, that's called the line of the hermit. And those are people who are much more internally comfortable with themselves. And it's not like they don't want to come out of their hermitage to be helpful. They just only want it to be worthwhile. Otherwise, they'd rather be by themselves. But a lot of us don't have that, so we don't know any better. And then third line is more the troublemaker. It's called the Martyr. It's where we just bump into things and learn from experience. And then if it's a fourth line, it's more external. So it's being an opportunist. I'm a fourth line, and it really is important for me to find all the opportunities I can. And I'm designed to always have to prove myself, which, people, and I found out in my design, I've learned that, wherever I am and I'm not talking and people don't know me, I'm invisible. No one has any idea that I know anything or could be helpful in any way. They don't even see me. As soon as I open my mouth and start talking, because in my design I'm also a verbal gunslinger, as soon as I start talking, people go, oh my God, look who's there. I didn't see him before. Oh, he has something to say. Oh, that's good. What does he have to say? So I need to create the opportunity. Whereas if you're a 5, those are heretics. Those are people who everybody expects them to have the answers. They see you and they go, oh, I want to know the answer to this or that. And if you don't give them the answer they're looking for, they'll burn you at the stake.
Oh.
Now, wait a minute. You say, wait a minute. I didn't tell you I would have the answer. And they go, yeah, but you look it. So they have high expectations. So 5s are people who walk around and they're not happy about having such high expectations about them. So it's not easy to be a 5 But to me, I'd rather be a 5, and that people automatically expect me to have answers, whereas I have to prove myself, which I love to do. But it's I've learned not to expect people to have high expectations of me until I open my mouth. And then if you're a 6, you're a role model, and 6s are people who have been, let's say, scarred. They're people who have had struggle in their early lives, and they've learned to avoid trouble. They live through most of their middle years in life trying to avoid trouble, but healing from their early life. So they become role models. They become the wise ones on the hill because they've learned and healed from struggle. And so it's hard to be a 6, but it ends up being worthy, very worthy. But then we have not types, we have crosses to bear, actually. It's where the sun and the earth hexagrams reveal themselves in a way that creates a story about what our roles in life are. That's why it's called the cross to bear. That's what our role is, that we have to bear in life. And you have, in your chart, you have the role of service. And it's not just the work you do. You're somebody's always trying to serve in so many ways. And, you're just seeing, oh, they can use my service. Oh, they can. Right?
Very true. Absolutely. When I'm not working, I'm still helping people.
Exactly.
All the time.
I know. My wife has the same cross to bear, and oh my gosh, she's involved in so many organizations, and it's amazing. But she also has a trait in her chart that you have that I look and wonder at it, and it's called electricity. You have it twice. You're a double electricity. It's vitality. It's the energy. You have so much energy in you that it amazes people all the time.
That's very funny because one of my 8 books is called Unlimited Energy Now. And the book is about how to have more energy.
Well, it's easy for you to talk because you're designed to have this energy motor that's very powerful. And my wife has the same one. Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting aspect. And she has also a connection to, it goes from the first chakra, and that's the chakra of initiation. So that's where your electricity is coming from, the first chakra. And it goes to the spleen chakra, which a lot of people don't know about. But spleen chakra is a home of fear for survival. And so it's what drives us to survive in life. And you have a lot of activity in that chakra. So that's good. It means that you have a lot of good survival mechanisms. So it's good that you write a lot of books about it. And one of the traits is the trait of needing to correct and challenge. So you're somebody who can always, I have this too, and my wife has it, you're always looking for what's wrong. So you can correct it.
Yeah, that's why we're medical intuitives, right, Peter?
That's right, because we're interested in what's wrong. And it's survival. It's like, if we don't find out what's wrong, we're all going to die. So that's the spleen chakra. So we have this need to find the leaky faucets.
Isn't that what people pay us for, right, Peter?
Yes. And we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't have this in our design.
Exactly. Yes. It's like, okay, they've been to all these people and they can't figure it out. And it's like, boom, laser, here it is. You missed this.
Right. And what's interesting in your chart, you have one of the best traits that people have. And you have to understand that there's 64 hexagrams times 6 lines. It's 384 different traits that you can have. You can also have exaltations or detriments of them. You don't have any detriments in your chart. Very, very unusual. I have a bunch in my chart. So, and my wife and I are rolling our heads. Oh my God, there's a detriment again. And so, so that's another good thing about knowing human design, especially in relationships. You really understand why you're different and how you can help each other manifest the best of yourselves and allow yourselves for the struggles that you're designed for also. Because there are 384 lines, including on top of that, add the detriments and the exaltations. So you have almost 1,000 opportunities to be different from anybody else. And we only get 26 choices of traits because of the number of chakras and I'm sorry, the number of planets. And so there's a limited number of traits that we can be born to. So I always tell people, whatever it is in your chart, it's a real gem. Each one is taken from 1,000 and you get 26. And that's also why you're so different from anybody else who couldn't have the same 26 you have. So, you know, there are traits that some people have a bunch of difficult ones. And those are people who know about it. I mean, in a sense, they don't know about human design, but they've seen in their lives that they struggle with different things. And that's why it's really good for those people also to know their human designs, to see what they're born to struggle with, to make the best of it, to really, you know, have compassion for themselves. So when I work with couples, for instance, and they can see that in each other, they're not stuck in judgment of the other person. They say, oh, you're born to be this way. Let me help you be better. You know, even though we know you have to be this way. So fortunately for you, you really don't have a difficult chart. I mean, you are here to have power. You have a warrior ego. It means that you're here to, you know, to use whatever tools you can to survive. And you're here for leadership. You're actually an anarchist. Well, being a medical intuitive, you have to be, because we have to actually go against the grain of the embedded stuckness of the medical profession and, you know, the stuck scientists in the world who can't grow and change. And so you're an anarchist about that. But one of the actually greatest traits that you have, whenever I see this in someone's chart, I go, oh, lucky you. And it's the fuel for transformation. You know, you're here to really evolve in this life. And that's wonderful. And you also have a trait that you're really here to embrace a very broad spectrum of ideas. And these are unique traits. You know, there are a lot of people who have traits of narrow-mindedness. You don't.
That's why here on the Natural Healing Show, we have people talking about all kinds of different approaches to natural healing.
Of course, you're designed to want that.
Now, Peter Roth, how can human design help us to learn about our life purpose? Because so many people are really wanting to get in touch with, you know, what is my soul purpose? How can I understand it and how can I fulfill it?
Right. So there are really a number of ways in human design to see that. One of the primary ways is to understand that cross we bear, because that ends up being our role in life. So you could say, well, that's our purpose. So your purpose in life is to be of service, right? My role is conservation. So I'm here to conserve well-being. So I'm here to have answers for people to keep on keeping on. And so there's so many different, there's 194 different crosses to bear. So we each have different ways that we're here to find those purposes. And there's so many other aspects of purpose having to do with which hexagrams we're born into that that tell us there are 64 different hexagrams, so there are 64 different purposes that have to do with, it's actually in the part of your chart that's based on the hexagram at the earth sign, on the unconscious level, on the 88 and a half days before you were born. So whatever that hexagram is explains what your purpose is. And there are so many other ways that this shows who we are. There's also, based on the 6 numbers, for instance, there's something called color. And I say, well, let's find out about your color. And people go, well, I think I know what my color is. But it's really not visual. It's a number. And so, and I haven't, it's embedded in the software, and I don't have yours in front of me. But I can say, you know, there are 6 numbers, 6 colors, and mine is a 6. And very few people are color 6. And the color 6 is the color of innocence. So people who don't have that often say, well, what's my hidden agendas? What am I up to? And it's like, I don't have them. And it's like, I don't understand that. Everybody's got them. You know. And so when I do charts for people and they have innocence, they get it about themselves. They know, oh yeah, I've always, you know, just been innocent in my life about things. And I find that also because we have, if it's 4, you're a master. If it's a 3, you're a leader. And so when I've had, you know, in my school, when I have big classes and they come from teachings, it's like, you know, and I sit in front of them, I'm not designed to be a master or a leader. I'm just designed to innocently want to communicate all that the universe is supporting us with. And I do that, and they love it. And, you know, there have been people who've come to class who have been looking for me to be a guru or, you know, some sort of a leader that, and wanting to address them as followers. And I can't, you know, I can't see that. I don't identify with that. So there are people who are disappointed in that, because I know people who are out there creating huge followings because it's like, it's a follow me, I know best. And those people are designed to have that trait that people who are designed to be followers love, you know. And I used to work with a guy like that in leading large groups that he organized, and they loved his leadership because he addressed them as his followers. And I was co-leader with him, and I never behaved that way. And I could see that people looked at us differently. So there are a number of different numbers, colors. If you're a 1, you're somebody who is fearful and needs to find security. If you're a 2, you live on, 2s live in the color part of the chart. 2s live in faith, and they just want to believe, and they don't need a logical excuse for it. They just, you know, they want to believe. And so, and then if you're a 5, it's interesting because 5s, they're very existential. They just live in being true to every moment of themselves. And that's beautiful to see. So you see, there's so many different applications of human design that go on and on. There's also tone. There's also food strategy. It tells you what your food strategy is. And this is based on what makes your enzymes happy.
Oh, how fascinating.
And so for some people, it's eating in quiet. For other people, it's eating in noise. Some people have to only love what they eat, the taste of it. It has to be so tasteful. And that makes their enzymes happy. If they eat food that's not tasteful to them, they won't be healthy. And I have a difficult trait called the caveman. So I can only eat when I'm hungry, and I have to eat simply. Simple foods, you know, like cavemen might have eaten. And so and there are others. There are many other food strategies. There's also ideal location in life. My ideal location is the shoreline, and so I do live by the Hudson River in Manhattan, but also it's metaphorical. So when I'm in organizations, I'm always like a shoreline person. I always say I'm not a joiner, but often I'm asked to be a leader of that innocently, but I'm asked to contribute in a leadership role, to teach and to help the organizations be organized, and but not as just a joiner. And so that's shoreline. But there are people who are here to need to live in the mountains. And what is that? That's also metaphorical. They need to always see the overview. They need to be above things so they can look down and understand things better. And then there are people here live in valleys. And why? Because they need to be where the commerce flows through, where there's settlement and communities. And they feel best when they're in that environment.
If you could, Peter Roth, if you could summarize, how can human design help us be healthier? You talked about understanding our life purpose, knowing how we're actually designed to eat, knowing our ideal environment, other perspectives that you've seen where you've really helped people get in touch with who they are so they can be healthier.
Well, health has to do with our psyches. And so the more we can be at peace with ourselves, the more our bodies can be at peace with us. And so this really helps people believe in themselves better and in each other, in relationships, in their families, to bring up children to be who they're supposed to be, not who you want to invent them to be. And so it creates health by creating more comfort and peace in our lives.
That's really beautiful. And now, have you looked at the human designs of any famous people?
Well, I have many, many times, and they're always true. And it's amazing how true they are. Dalai Lama, he's here. Actually, he has a trait called the second-class citizen, and it's like he lost his country. And that makes sense. But he's here to really feel the flow in life. He has a channel of being in the flow that really dominates his chart. And so he understands that aspect of reality, of living and being true to the flow in life. And I've looked at the leaders' charts. I've looked at Trump's chart. It's very true to who he is. So
who's Donald Trump?
Well, he's an ego. He's an ego dictator. His Trump. His chart is full of power and aggression, and that makes sense. And but and then there are people whose charts are full of compromise, and you see those as leaders also. Government, for instance, who are major compromisers, or they compromise their integrity. There was one politician and a woman who I didn't like, and she had a trait called rejection of higher principles, and she also had a trait called insensitive to the needs of society. And so there are these traits that people have that you can see in them, and you say, well, why? If we knew this, we would know better. But then there are people who actually are designed to want. They're not. Now we can get into soul development and all that rather than human design. And there's so many people their souls aren't developed enough to have integrity and compassion and empathy the way many of us others have.
And Peter Roth, medical intuitive, host of the Energy Stew radio show, and human design analyst and teacher, and you've taught this system for the past 16 years. Any final thoughts for our audience about
the whole idea is, are you working on yourself? Whatever way you choose to keep on growing in life, about soul growth, emotional growth, relationship growth. And it's so important in everything in life. You don't even want to be married to somebody or in a long-term relationship with someone who's not working on themselves. So my final thought is really to ask you, how much are you doing to grow and to keep on growing, especially in a time that's very confusing that we're in, to know yourself better, to believe in yourself, and be the power in your own life that you need to be.
That's a beautiful thought. Now, for our audience, you can find out more about Peter Roth and his amazing work at heartriver.com.
.org. Excuse me.
My bad. Heartriver.org.
Right. HEART, river.org.
Yes, like the heart in your chest.
Right.
You've been listening to The Natural Healing Show. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can be healthy naturally. And remember, when you understand how you are designed to manifest here on Earth, you can be even healthier and even happier. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.